Generally, my biggest apprehension is I'm 27 years old. This can't be the peak. There has to be. First I got the invite to World Deadlift Champs, then I got the reserve invite to Worlds. If those two things didn't happen, I would have been done. I was already planning to start doing triathlons. So those invites kept me in the sport. If not, I'd be a below average triathlete right now.
So weird.
There's very few things I think in life that are actually going to stick with you a long time. Winning World's Strongest Man is one, getting married is one, having a baby is one, winning the Arnold is one, and all of that's happening in 1 year.
It's mad, isn't it?
I also had, Tom also went to the wrong side to start and he hugged my last stone for me, so it's nice and sticky. So,
thanks, Tom.
Shout out Tom, appreciate it.
Welcome to the World's Strongest Man winners interview. We caught up with Mitchell Hooper just after he won the event in Myrtle Beach to go through a remarkable 18 months in Strongman. First up, Mr. Colin BRYCE.
So it's now January and everyone has the World's Strongest Man blues, but one thing that might be the antidote is the World's Strongest Man himself. Mitch, well done, mate.
Thank you.
People have watched this now, they've seen it, the world knows you are indeed World's Strongest Man. Mm-hmm. How's it feel?
Strange. Yeah, I think being called the World's Strongest Man is something that the most arrogant 16-year-old on the planet would claim. And to be able to actually say that factually is a really unusual feeling. You know, the first time I actually thought about what it would be like to win World's Strongest Man and have that title, I was driving from Toronto to Myrtle Beach. I was maybe 3-4 hours away, and the thought dawned on me. You know, logically I could get there, but emotionally it was the first time I thought, what a strange thing that would be if it happened. And I haven't had enough time to process from the start of my career to winning World's Strongest Man what that would be like. So I feel incredibly lucky, incredibly blessed to be able to be one of the 0.0001% of the population who even has the physical capacity to do that, never mind it actually coming to fruition.
I mean, very few people ever win world titles, you know, it's an extraordinary achievement. Something that normally happens after World's Strongest Man is often the guys almost get a bit of a down period, but you seem to it's almost as if it's a springboard to many other things. And did you have a down period afterwards at all? Was there a sort of high and then a low?
No.
Not at all?
No, I was, you know, you said something to me last year, and you said no World's Strongest Man that you've known well has been in a good mental health place after they've won. I think because a lot of people see that as the pinnacle, and if you achieve the pinnacle of something, there's really nothing left to do, and then you can start to spiral. So I was already prepared for that type of feeling, and I didn't really let myself get all that too high. It was really hard to digest in the first place. But I think everything is a stepping stone to something else. And you could be World's Strongest Man and it could change your life like it has for Eddie Hall and Thor. Or you could be, you know, you're mostly the same person 12 months later if you don't make the most of it. And so, you know, there's sponsors, which is great, but there's just the number of connections you can make with successful people and the number of opportunities that can come from that is pretty incredible. And as someone who doesn't have a huge belief in anything that happens after you live, whatever time that you have on the earth, then it's the connections you make, it's the emotions you feel. And so that's my primary focus, is being able to connect with as many people as possible, and the general never-ending life purpose of impacting as many people by 1 to 2 degrees as possible is really my ambition, and that is never going to stop, and World's Strongest Man is just a springboard to be able to do a little bit more of what I already wanted to do.
Do you mind just going back and we've just feasted on the television. People have seen exactly how it went down. Yep. Let's quickly go back sort of 13, 14, well, actually 18 months ago now, of course.
Yeah, I guess. Happy 2024.
I mean, obviously, it was a chap called Julian Howard who got in touch with me and said, hey, Colin, have you seen this guy? You know how good he is? And
he's one of your best mates, right?
To be honest, I have great respect for Julian, as do you. And I have great respect for Julian. I really do. He's an easy man to mock as the world's strongest fan, and a lot of people do. But no, I think Julian has certainly helped me a lot. He found you.
Well, yeah,
in a way.
He
I didn't
board,
find
didn't
you, but I
he
was chatting away, and he regularly sends people over and shows me, look at this, look at this. I said 475 kilo deadlift. You're kidding me. Anyway, there you are. You came to Worlds. You came 8th. You had an incredible season.
But if we backtrack before that, before I got the invite to, first I got the invite to World Deadlift Champs, then I got the reserve invite to Worlds. If those two things didn't happen, I would have been done. And I would have moved back to Canada, started my exercise physiology clinic. I was already planning to start doing triathlons. So those invites kept me in the sport. If not, I'd be a below average triathlete right now.
So weird. Anyway, let's not go into that right now. How you could have been a below average triathlete and suddenly changed over to strongman, and I don't know. The whole thing's very confusing. So we're at the World's Strongest Man final. It's the start line, day 1. The rain came. Did any of that play into your hands, do you think? I know, for example, Brian had said he was quite disappointed the way the events changed round, because it meant he wasn't going to have the best start, and that maybe then, because there's a snowballing effect potentially of whoever does best in the first event then gets the last place start. That's maybe something what people don't realize, but is that part of the psychology, or is that just getting yourself on a down? Were you happy with the situation, the rain, the shield?
I don't care, really. Yeah, I see performance very much that your physical performance can vary within 5% on a given day. And to us, 5% can make a huge difference when you're at the top. But the psychological change, if you allow anything to get to you, that's the bit that can really take you from 1st to 4th or 5th. And whatever comes, everyone has to deal with it. And I think one of my biggest advantages and one of my biggest strengths is that there's really nothing that could happen that would throw me off. If you told us that instead of max monster dumbbell, we're going to do max log, I would probably have least to say about it. I'd have the least issue with it. Let's just get on with it and let's do it and let's see how it goes. And that flexibility really adds to consistency of performance. So did it play into my favor? Not in any direct way, but I think being pretty easygoing in relation to competition for sure. When the rain came and the time changed, that's a bit frustrating, but only because we're keen to get going. But I took that time and I went out to the fans and was signing some stuff, taking some pictures with the fans, and something to do, and made the most of it. And if I have zero doubt in my mind that if the events change in order, the outcome would have been exactly the same.
Let me see if I can remember the order of the events that I went to. So obviously you looked over at Tom Stoltman, right? That you're in the shield carry. It was you and Tom, right? And Tom raced off into the lead. He is the Giant Slide world record holder of that. Was that a bit of a fear that you would? He was so fast that you would run out of gas and not even be close to him? Because, as you said, you had like 3 stages, and each time you managed to actually get some quite significant gains out of it. Was that something you trained at it? I mean, you can't really train that much, can you?
No. I was getting really good with the sandbag, which is all I had. But I was happy to go next to Tom because if you are close to Tom in an event like that, or you're close to, say, one of the best competitors, it's a great mark to have. Yeah. And the going slow thing versus Tom, he's just faster. I had the shield in a bad position. After 1 lap, I had to readjust, jump, and pull the shield back up. It certainly wasn't the easiest thing, but
that was a bit of a hairy moment actually. You saw it on TV. I mean, if that slipped and went out of your hands at that point, it would have been.
Yeah, and I won 4 of the 6 events in the finals, but I don't think people understand the margins in which you operate when it comes to the highest competition in the world. So yeah, I mean, in hindsight, I could have jumped with the shield. It could have fell down and would have came dead last in the event.
But you were strong enough to grab it. So yeah.
But I was strong enough to grab it.
You were indeed. Yeah.
And that is what then allowed me to win, because that sat up higher on my chest. So I was able to get a little bit more distance. And then I think with my general attitude towards things, it's underappreciated how I can suffer with pretty much anyone. Whether it's thumbs on a nickel stone carry, whether it's you're breathing on a shield carry, I think the old don't misinterpret, say, a happiness for a weakness.
I was going to say that there's people talk about going until you drop, doing this, but I think there's also a certain element of you that you are, I imagine, under extreme pressure, you manage to remain pretty cool. I can't see you as a flapper, as it were, because that's quite a panic moment when you have to readjust your grip and sort of throw and catch something like that. That's a big decision to make. but you obviously made it coolly and carried on. I think most people wouldn't have done that decision. They would have just tried to eke it out with whatever it was in.
Well, potentially, and if you keep your head about you, then you can do things like that, and you can think, okay, how can I get this shield in a better position? You can also have the mind about you to go, Tom's dropped his shield, now I have a mark to beat. And if you were too worked up and too in your own head, you lose points in the margins there. So yeah, I would estimate if I didn't adjust the shield, I would have come mid-pack in the shield carry. You carry that all the way through. All the other events are the same. By the time we get to stones, Tom and I are very close. And for anyone, if Tom is close to you and stones are coming up, you're not going to be particularly excited about that.
Well, you and Tom, if I remember correctly, then went head-to-head in the deadlift.
Yep.
And he kind of raced off ahead there as well, actually, didn't he? Just a little bit. You maybe didn't realise that, but he was a rep ahead going into the 7th rep. And then he took about 10 or 15 seconds over it. Yeah. Didn't finish it. Yeah. You went 6, equaled on 6, 7, and then you did 8, right? Did you do 8 in the end? You did and won it.
I won the event.
Yes, you did 8. Yes, you did. You did 8, I think. Yeah, off the top of my head.
Yes, you're right.
People are going, we just watched this. How can you not know? But yes, and that was actually, there was probably another one there, wasn't it? If you absolutely needed it, but you had gone quite late.
A couple more.
Okay, a couple more. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the advantage of having an accomplishable number in your head when you've seen everyone else go.
Yeah.
And yeah, I worked really, really hard on making my deadlift better, and ironically, that's the reason that I got invited to shows in the first place, and that's the event that I lost the most points on over the course of last year. So improving that to the point where you win an event at Worlds with some in the tank, you get the advantage of you're fresher than other people who've gone to max.
You get to go last,
and you get the points.
Yeah,
super helpful.
Yeah, so I guess moving on to the next event, it was FINGALS, right? FINGALS. Probably the kind of event, if someone had said to me and described the situation about you leading up to that Worlds, I'd have said, well, he can't win Worlds. He'll have too many technical flaws. And a technical flaw did arrive in the FINGALS, at least I think so. And that was, obviously, in my opinion, you didn't have quite the sort of technique, something you probably will gain over time, where you swing in and drive. You did more of a... Yeah. Because it was new to you, totally. I mean, did you get a hold of a finger beforehand? Did you talk a caber or something? Did you practice a bit?
I had 2 8x8 pieces of wood that I secured into the ground. It was really wobbly left to right. It's like that under technique. There's no way I could have done it. But yeah, that was the.
You did well. I mean, you did incredibly well.
I was 5th, right?
You were 5th.
But I was a second and a half off of 3rd.
Was Trey Mitchell with you? Was Trey Mitchell and you together? Yeah, that's right. Trey
beat me by a hair. But you look at on the margins, and I lost a handful of points on the margins there. So I think a little bit of practice on that, I could be much better. And yeah, the technique there was not ideal, but the strength was enough that the technique was good enough to get them done. My whole goal going into it, my whole goal was if I get all 5, I'm happy. So even though I was in mid-pack, I was happy enough with the performance. The only thing that was a bummer is now that lead that I had disappeared to next to nothing, because Tom was now 1 point behind me, Alexi was half a point behind Tom, and I think Trey, I had a 3-point lead on Trey. But when you have a 1 point lead going into the final day at Worlds, since all is determined by stones, it's basically a draw. Because if he were to beat you by 1 point on stones, or by a place on stones, you tie, then he wins. So my goal going into day 2 was podium. Looking at the events of day 2, we had max dumbbell. When the last time we did heavy dumbbell, I came 9th out of 10 at Rogue.
Yeah.
We had bus pull, which the only other time I had done that was Coach Colin BRYCE led me to 8th place, teaching me in the parking lot the day before finals of Worlds last year.
Luckily, you didn't have me this year.
And I had stones, which I'd improved a lot, but my stone run at Worlds last year, I came 9th out of 10. So my results in these events were 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10.
Had you had a brilliant stone run? I mean, let's just skip, we don't want to skip anything, but okay, the vehicle pull, let me just do that real quick, because everyone said it was really, really close, and it was for a lot of people that were within 2, 3, 4 tenths. But to be fair, your victory was significant. Yeah. It was, wasn't it? It was more like, I mean, it was like 30 to 32, wasn't it? It was a significant...
2 and a bit seconds, I believe, yeah.
It was over 2 seconds.
Yeah.
That is that was almost, were it to be 3, it would be 10%. So it's like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8%. Yeah. That's the significant butt kicking. And considering you don't have the body weight, I guess it would be, you could argue, and I'm sure the Goliaths in the 10 would say it wasn't heavy enough or something like that. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, massing was force times acceleration, right? So
well, that's it. What determines how fast something moves? Well, that's determined by how much force you put into it.
Yes.
So that's a representation of I put the most force in over that period of time.
Yes.
If it was heavier, the only argument that I wouldn't have done well is if I would have burnt out. But that's not really in my nature.
Yeah.
In which case, okay, I don't see.
You threw away the rope, though. I mean, that was a moment I thought, oh no, he's madness. What's he done? But
no,
actually,
my opinion when it comes to truck pull, and it's not really an opinion, it's whoever has the fastest velocity between 5 and 10 meters on a 25-meter truck pull is going to win.
So you're sort of a bit like 100 meters. You don't lose too much speed. You just who can accelerate up to top speed, in other words, fastest.
Yeah,
that's
who gets the fastest start? Because once that's moving,
more like a 60-meter sprint. Actually,
we're back to force equals mass times acceleration. If the bus is accelerating behind you, your acceleration in relation to the thing that you're moving is naturally going to be less and less as you go. Right? And so the force you can put into it is going to be diminished by the bus moving behind you. So that last 10 meters, so long as it doesn't go uphill, is relatively unimportant. So yes, I might have, to be honest, I don't think I messed up the last 5 meters or so because the rope was just a formality at that stage. But I put so much energy into that first 5 to 10 meters. And I'm happy to give the hint to whoever's watching. There's 2 things I did to win the truck pull unrelated to my performance itself. One of them was getting, you do it in golf, where if you're trying to read a practice green, you'll get a bubble level on your phone and you'll put it on the green and you'll see how does the green slope so you know where you're putting. So I did that every 5 meters for the bus, made sure that there was no area in which that was going uphill whatsoever. It wasn't, it was very, very flat. So I knew if I could go hard in the first 5-10 meters, that's all I needed to do to get the velocity to then be able to finish in a fast time. The second thing,
to just keep it cruising, in other words, yeah.
It'll cruise itself.
So you got it up to top speed fastest, basically, yeah. If everyone's going to be pretty similar, you're guessing, yeah.
The second thing is the rope itself, because with a truck pull, you can't really drive with your legs as much as people think. Your legs are working really hard to keep yourself parallel to the ground. Most of the force is actually coming from your arms that you have control over. Otherwise, it's just leaning into it. So every other guy got the rope pulled to their hands like this.
That's what people always talk about, yeah.
So if you were the competitor, your arms were out. The guy who's pulling the tension out, most guys got the tension pulled out here. They grabbed it behind that and then tried to get as much tension. I got him to pull from behind me, lean back into it, and then I got into like a 4-point
So you actually
stance.
started with it here?
No. He's pulling it back behind me. I get into a 4-point stance, and then with all of the tension in the rope, I reach out as far above my head as possible. Right. And then my start, I'm already in position to start driving.
You were very low. Yeah.
Because it's a light truck pull, so you don't need that big heave and then go down into start position.
In fact, I'm sure if we looked at it, the yellow toe line was actually quite high. I think probably you're one of the few that are almost a level, you know, the toe, whatever you call it, the towing rope.
The harness.
Yeah. While his big Tom's was kind of up like that, you know, and same with Brian, I think.
And then you do trigonometry. And
you're trying to pull the front of the bus up, aren't you? I mean, any mass getting, you know, some the size they have advantage is lost, isn't it?
Well, if you're at a 45-degree angle, you lose half of the weight that you could be putting into the.
I remember watching the total size of Mateus pulling that plane in 2017.
Yeah.
His nose was like there on the tarmac. So you could, he was like an animal. It's like a different beast compared to everybody else.
Yeah.
And boy, did it pay off.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to. Dumbbell. This is my. Can I give you my theory on dumbbell? My theory on dumbbell was, and I know a lot of people will be watching that and saying, "Hey, Matt, you know, was the referee a little bit loose, a little bit light?" And actually, Magnus Ver Magnusson on the day had to adjust, and it's just worth you knowing that, because a lot of people said, "Oh, he was a bit too quick with results, you know, putting down signals up," but actually, it was a very. Is it fair to say it was quite it was on sand, wood on sand, wasn't it? which gives it a certain flexibility, different to the concrete we were on.
No, it was fine.
No, but I mean, Jacko wobbled around. We even put some more mats down to try and make it a little bit even. This is my theory. Just bear with me on this one.
I got you.
And it was total sunshine. You had nothing to look at, right?
Sure. Yeah.
If you watch your one in particular, I think your 300-pound one. You almost do it like an old-fashioned bent press off to the side.
Yep.
And that you're sort of looking off into the sky like this, but there's nothing to really look at. And also, everybody in that position, almost everybody, when you're on concrete, you can hold it. And there was a big discussion, remember beforehand. If you're there, you can hold it, but actually almost nobody could hold it. And that, my theory is because a 300-pound man and a 350-pound man, a 300-pound dumbbell, between shoes, wood, sand, already an uneven surface, it's made it so much more difficult than perfectly flat concrete. That's my theory. And I think Magnus made the right decisions. Just pure aside, this is just a little discussion here. What was your thoughts? Obviously, you probably came out on the better side of the decisions. Were you happy with what went down?
I don't agree that I came out on the better side of the decision. I think it was.
I think your decision was right.
Really. Mm-hmm. The thing is, I in no way did I feel that the ground was unstable. There was sand issues, anything. If we think about a split jerk in Olympic lifting, the objective of a split jerk is to drop your center of mass down below whatever implement you're trying to get overhead. So instead of having to get 8 feet off the ground, you only need to get 7.5 feet. And so for me, that's why I go to that bent over position. If you look back at the dumbbells, say the generous calls that other people were given, the generosity was in that the dumbbell was still moving and they got a down call. If you look at the generosity of the down calls I was given, it's that my body was not completely vertical. But you will not find a dumbbell that was more stable at lockout than mine. I.e., if I didn't get the down call, that dumbbell would stay up there. I would continue to fight vertical. I don't think there's many other generous calls that if the down call wasn't given, that the stability actually would have happened.
And in commentary, I actually said as much. It reminds me of an old-fashioned circus, literally a circus dumbbell from the old days. That's how they would finish. Is that wrong? No. Why is it wrong? Legs, arms are straight. Legs and arms are straight. You were paused. It was a perfectly good rep. In particular, your last one. I mean, from a distance, it was hard to say, and only Magnus could feel it. There is a momentary straightening of Evans' one.
Arm was straight and drifting. Yeah.
Drift, and maybe it was drifting. Yeah,
Yeah.
but only in slow motion do
here's
you
the thing.
see that. It's hard to call it.
Here's the thing. All we can ask for is a consistency. And the people who lost out were the people who forced themselves to be so strict that they couldn't get the benefit of having maybe some generous calls given on the day. But if you go through round 1, round 2, round 3, and you're seeing generous calls and you don't adapt what you're doing, then that's sort of on you. And I think it's akin to, say we're playing basketball and the referee's not calling fouls. Well, I'm going to hit your arm because there's no fouls. And you can stand on your pedestal and be proud of yourself that you played it true, and there's no argument that, well, it really doesn't matter. It's what's happening on the day, what's the conditions on the day, and you adapt to that. And if you adapt successfully, that's what's going to make it consistently good strongman.
Yeah. So we now go into the stones then, and even at this point, you're comfortable margin in the lead, but you see Trey Mitchell go out and blitz all 5. The stones are unbelievably heavy. Was it a 460 finish of 460? So last year we didn't do 460. That's the heaviest set of stones ever. And last year, you didn't finish the stones, right? You did a little tumble.
Yeah.
And you're not an albatross human being with 7'6" man's arms on a 6'8" body.
Yeah.
Trey is quite unique at being brilliant. He went out, really set the time. Tom went out, and in the first few stones, Tom rushed off in the lead, and it was just like watching what you thought was going to happen. And I don't know if everybody else assumed it, but I really thought you wouldn't do the 5th. I apologize for saying it, because it was like, there is a certain Clark Kent turns into Superman with you, and I don't know how the hell you did it, but you didn't just do it. You actually almost caught time up on Tom on the last one.
Yeah.
It was an extraordinary finish.
Yeah.
It was the ultimate. This guy truly is the world's strongest man. And it was in many ways it was a great moment as an organizer of it, to say, yeah, we got the right guy.
Yeah.
We bloody got him.
Yeah.
We got the right guy. We tested him all different facets. Were you nervous? Did you think you would do all? Would you have bet on yourself to do all of them?
Yeah. All else being equal, I think so. I've done stone runs that heavy before, and if you look at just stone performance over the course of last year, I came 9th at the stones in Worlds. I believe I came 6th at the stones at Royal Albert Hall. We went to we went to Cardiff, and I came 5th in the stones. Over at the Shaw Classic, I came 3rd in the stones. At the Rogue Invitation, I came 2nd at the stones. And so you see that improvement over and over and over. And I knew that I was more than capable. I've lifted a 500-pound stone before, so 460 at the end of a run, end of the comp, it's massive. But there's a certain amount of, at that stage, it was as basic as you lift 5 stones, you're the world's strongest man. And with that level of motivation, it's hard to envision that not happening.
You did it with ease. I mean, you did it easier than Tom, the last one.
It was not too much. And there's a Cinderella moment there where I was on the far side from where we walked out, and production had arranged for my family to be at the walkway. And so I saw my wife, when this airs, Ashley, sort of bent down because I have the stone in my lap. I'm sitting, one of my fingers is on the ring, so I have to readjust. And I could see her sitting right off in the distance. And you're like, this
really?
is 100%.
Call it
Just the same attitude as I knew that Tom dropped the shield. Where you got to keep your head about you doing these things. You got to know what's going on.
Yep.
And I mean, to have a moment like that and have that sort of gravity behind it, it's very hard to not do what you're capable of doing. My concern was more about my tacky needs to be perfect, because a tacky issue would undo anybody.
It was?
Close. Yeah, I think if you watch it back on the second stone, my hands were slipping, and I sort of had to readjust and rethrust that stone. But as a little bit of tacky came off, it was in a better and better position. I also had Tom also went to the wrong side to start, and he hugged my last stone for me, so it's nice and sticky. So
thanks, Tom.
Shout out, Tom. Appreciate it.
So in the end, so you came first, Big Tom second, Alexi third. What a trooper Alexi is.
Yeah.
Do you think that, do you want to do many more titles? Has your aims changed? Do you know where you want to go with it all now?
It's funny, you set these lofty goals, and you just, when you hit them, it's sort of just, it takes you aback. Yeah. The attitude towards training has been very different since I've won, but it's been different in the way that I'm not training with the idea to become the world's strongest man. I'm training back to the idea of why I started all this. And why I started all this is to see how strong can I become? What's the strongest version of me? And we see the improvement that's happened over the last 12 months, and there's a law of diminishing returns, and of course you're not going to improve that much every year, but you don't go from the dramatic improvements that I made from year one to year two.
You don't keep getting them,
surely. You don't keep getting them, but you also don't completely plateau to no improvement.
Yeah, well said, yeah.
There was such a jump from year 1 to year 2 that year 2 to year 3, surely there's going to be another jump of a smaller magnitude. Yeah. Year 3 to 4, a smaller jump of another magnitude. But I think if you frame everything in how many titles am I going to win, what competitions am I going to win, what if Thor comes back and Thor is twice what he was before? Hats off, I can still be happy with what I do if I continue to improve. And if I continue to improve, I think more titles are coming my way, because you could not. I actually thought me and Colin were getting on pretty well. I thought Worlds events coming out, we should have some favorable events here. And I thought, what the fuck? You could not have chose worse events for me in the final.
Really?
You could not. If you asked me on paper,
not on me,
worst events, we have to have a deadlift, of course. So deadlift is a good one for me. Max Monster Dumbbell would have been my worst event. That would have been the last thing I'd want to see, and I won the event. Fingerless finger I'd never done before, so of course I didn't want to do that. Bust pull, the only result I had was 9th out of 10.
Oh, crikey, yeah.
So there's nothing there for me where you put a yoke in there. Okay, and let's put it this way. Let's say the fingerless finger was a yoke, which is not an insane change out. It's another moving event. Well, you take me from 5th and you put me in 1st. That's another 4 points. And I win 5 out of the 6 final events and come 2nd in the other. So I think there's a long way for me to improve. I think other guys are going to continue to step up their game to continue to match. And I think there's going to be a lot of really exciting, fun battles moving forward. But I actually feel substantially less pressure to win anything now, and I perform much better.
It's a dangerous man, then.
I perform much better, yeah, when I don't feel the pressure. But the focus is now, it's 12 months ago, my goal was to give as much back to my family as possible. I want my kids to have a better life than I had. Now that I've won World's Strongest Man, with everything that's happened in the past 12 months, it's no longer what can I give back to my family. It's like now I have something to give back to the world. Now it's just expanded what I think my life has to be. And it's a huge privilege. I think it's a huge obligation, a huge responsibility. And hopefully that all shakes out for the best, and I can still have a normal family life for that. And there's a lot of things going on in the back of my head where long term I think you got to make sure everything stays in check. But it's given me huge ambitions in and out of the sport after winning Worlds.
This is just a tiny observation, but you do seem, in all of your videos since, everything I've seen you do, you seem almost a more relaxed, contented man. Well, I think almost. Did it humble you a wee bit winning it? It did, didn't it? I thought so. Yeah, I thought so. I could feel it, and that's. I think it must be a. Actually, I think you're one of the few people who they say if you're not good enough without it, you'll never be good enough with it. I actually think you work rather well with it, and I think it's given you a little something extra that's probably going to sit with you for the rest of your life and make you hopefully a more contented person. And,
do you know there's very few things I think in life that are actually going to stick with you a long time, and that accounts for friends, some family, a lot of your accomplishments. You tell me the best thing you did in 2017. I don't know, but winning World's Strongest Man is one, getting married is one, having a baby is one, winning the Arnold is one, and all of that's happening in 1 year. So
it's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's generally my biggest apprehension is I'm 27 years old. This can't be the peak. There has to be more.
When do you believe a man's peak is? Physically, strength.
I could have told you. This is sort of an aside. When I was 17, 18 years old, I think the context would have been I thought I would have been best at football. I always had this thing in my head that at 27 years old, that would be the peak of my athletic career. Mm-hmm. And I think even if I continue to win World's Strongest Man, I think that first one is just different. Mm-hmm. But when is the peak? I genuinely, I would say it's more about training age than it is about chronological age. And I think somewhere between 5 and 10 years, depending on who you are, of when you started focusing on it competitively is when you're going to hit that peak. Now, for me, I think it's closer to 5 because my training history before Strongman was so extensive. And I'm in.
So you can imagine 3 or 4 years at your peak now, or more, even continuing to peak. Yes.
Yeah. And then it's just push and pull factors of what's most important to my life. Is it continuing to fight to win more World's Strongest Man titles, or is it maybe focusing more on making a broader impact, more on, say, growing the sport, on promoting general health and wellness, on promoting mental health? There's a lot of different ways that it could all go, and it's all what's the most important, and what do I think gives back the most to my family, gives back the most to the world, gives me the greater purpose. And whatever's ticking all those boxes, that's going to be what I'm going to continue pushing forward.
Well, you said at the start of this that it's quite a bit of a dream to be able to call yourself the World's Strongest Man. I know you're going to no doubt be pushing for children at some point, pushing and pulling or whatever you do for children. But I think it'd be nothing better than actually having my dad as the World's Strongest Man. That would be the ultimate, wouldn't it? Even cooler than being the World's Strongest Man.
When this comes out, Ashley's due in March. She's pregnant. Yeah.
You stud. Yeah. Well done, congratulations.
Yeah.
Sorry, well done, Ashley, as well.
Perfect take.
Hey, well done, mate.
Yeah.
And congratulations on the most epic 18 months in Strongman.
Yeah.
Thank you.